blew into offices, striking workers with flying glass.
What's going on, y'all? Attorney Tom here, back with another USCSB React video. This video is titled Runaway Explosion at T2 Laboratories. Let's jump right into it. I need to hire the company that does the soundtrack for the USCSB. They always have bangers.
On December 19th, 2007, a powerful explosion and fire occurred at T2 Laboratories, a small chemical producer in Jacksonville, Florida. The blast killed and injured workers, destroyed T2 Laboratories, and extensively damaged 4 nearby businesses.
So, as many of y'all know, I'm a catastrophic personal injury lawyer, and I often work on refinery or chemical explosions like this. What I think a lot of people don't realize is when an explosion like this happens, there's often additional collateral from the personal injury aspect. As the narrator said, there were workers who were killed and injured, but also nearby businesses that were destroyed. And while certainly the loss of life and personal injury is way more severe than having property damaged, it still happens. And I'm not really too sure why I decided to bring that up. I just thought it was interesting. I think y'all need to know that there are many layers to the legal issue side of things. Let's keep going.
Windows blew into offices, striking workers with flying glass.
The explosion at T2 Laboratories is one of several accidents that the CSB has investigated caused by runaway chemical reactions. Accidents resulting from reactive hazards occur too frequently and often have serious consequences.
Behind me on this concrete pad, there used to stand a structure some 50 feet high that had a reactor vessel in it, in which the company that operated here, T2 Laboratories Incorporated, manufactured a chemical known as methylcyclopentadienyl manganese tricarbonyl, or MCMT for short.
Okay, we will call it MCMT. I have no idea how to pronounce that. And I actually already forgot how to say it.
Methylcyclopentadienyl manganese tricarbonyl.
MCMP? I already forgot the abbreviation.
The entire structure and reactor vessel were blown away in the explosion.
T2 produced MCMT, a gasoline additive, in batches using a 2,500-gallon reactor. An operator controlled the process with a computerized system in a nearby control room. In the first step, liquid chemicals and sodium metal were loaded into the reactor, heated, and then mixed with an agitator. The reaction produced hydrogen, which was vented to the atmosphere. In normal operations, when the temperature reached 300 degrees Fahrenheit, the operator would turn off the heating system. But because this reaction was exothermic, or heat-producing, the temperature inside the reactor would continue to rise. At 360 degrees, operators would begin to periodically fill the reactor's cooling jacket with water. As the water boiled, heat was removed, controlling the temperature. However, on the day of the accident, the CSB found that the operator tried to cool the reactor as usual, but the cooling system likely malfunctioned. Perhaps...
Okay, so we hear that the cooling system malfunctioned, which is likely what caused the explosion. Now, as a lawyer, we need to understand why it malfunctioned. Did it malfunction because of lack of maintenance? Did it malfunction because of lack of neglect over the years? Did it malfunction because lack of training from the staff? Did it malfunction because of the product itself? Meaning, did the employees and the company do everything right? Just the person they bought it from had a malfunctioning product. And remember, it can be a little bit of everything. Under the law, fault is a spectrum. It's never black and white. Remember, in court, there can be multiple parties, and the multiple parties are assigned a percentage of the fault, equaling 100. And as always, I want you to watch the entire video and assign your fault percentages at the end, and I'll do the same.
Perhaps due to a blockage in the water supply piping or a valve failure. The temperature and pressure inside the reactor began to rise uncontrollably in a runaway chemical reaction. T2's co-owners returned to the plant after a worker called to report the cooling problem. While one owner searched for the plant mechanic, the other went to the control room. Concerned about a possible fire, he warned employees to move away from the reactor. Inside the reactor, the pressure was still increasing, reaching 400 pounds per square inch and bursting the rupture disc. Witnesses heard a sound like a jet engine as high-pressure gas began to vent from the reactor. But it was too late. Within 10 seconds, there was a massive explosion, equivalent to about 1,400 pounds of TNT.
Oh my God. Look how bright that is. It's like a bomb went off.
The blast damaged buildings over 1,500 feet away. Debris rocketed up to a mile. The co-owner and the operator in the control room were killed. 2 operators further away died from flying debris.
Look at that. I mean, it's no surprise that 2 people got killed from flying debris. I mean, these things are like missiles. And did you see the businesses? This is exactly what I was talking about at the beginning. So obviously, this is not as severe as literally losing your life or becoming permanently injured, but this is substantial damage to people's property. I mean, this building probably is completely totaled, and the owner of that building is going to have a claim for that. Additionally, they're going to have a claim for the potential business interruption because presumably they don't have an office to work in. You don't have an office to work in, you can't do your work. If you can't do your work, you're losing out on revenue. So it's not just the tangible damage, but it's the loss of business revenue as well. And again, I just think that is an overlooked aspect of these sorts of deals.
32 other people were injured, including 28 at nearby businesses.
This facility housed multiple types of chemicals. That was a kind of a mass storage of everything you can think of, and it was all mixed together and it was all burning together. And for our perspective from the hazardous material side, it makes kind of a worst case scenario.
Damage from the explosion was so severe, 4 nearby buildings were condemned.
My office personnel heard a whistling sound in the area, and as they looked out the window, they saw an orange glow, which was the blast coming off of the explosion, and it came to our offices and it blew in all the windows in our office trailers. Oh. Immediately it was a shock or a surprise, and then all of us were shaking afterward.
In 2002, the CSB completed a study on reactive chemical hazards. The study identified 167 serious accidents involving uncontrolled chemical reactions between 1980 and 2001, causing 108 deaths and hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage.
And I don't want to be all pessimistic, but the preceding 20 years, 2001 to 2021, were not much better. In fact, they were probably worse. We experienced some of the worst explosions in U.S. history over the past 20 years. If only people watched USCSB videos, who knows where society would be.
When mixing chemicals that have an exothermic reaction, you need to be aware of the amount of energy that could be released by the reaction to prevent vessels from bursting like the one that happened here.
Okay, so obviously we're getting into the issue spotting aspect of the video. Issue 1, it's foreseeable when you have an exothermic reaction that there is going to be a large amount of energy that needs to be displaced. As such, you are going to need to plan for a potential runaway exothermic reaction and have the capabilities to discharge that energy safely. It did not seem that T2 Laboratories had appropriate systems to discharge runaway exothermic chemical reactions in the event of a serious event such as this. They only had that one little skinny pipe. And again, I know y'all probably heard me say this word a bazillion times. The key is foreseeability. This is foreseeable.
T2 developed its MCMT process using a 1-liter reactor. The company then scaled up the process directly to full production volume in the 2,500-gallon reactor. After 41 batches, T2 increased the batch size further by 1/3.
Okay.
As the scale of the reaction increased, effective cooling became ever more difficult.
Okay. Issue 2, batch size. Why did T2 increase batch size? I anticipate it's because they wanted to make more money. If you can increase your batch size, you can increase your profit because you have more product to sell.
During 175 production runs making MCMT, T2 periodically experienced problems, such as unexpected temperature increases, but the company never fully investigated the causes.
Next issue, T2 Laboratories literally had cooling problems before, and they failed to investigate. Are you kidding me? I'd be willing to bet that there's a direct correlation between the cooling issues and the batch size. And even if there wasn't, you still need to investigate because this is literally playing with fire. And just because an explosion didn't happen one time doesn't mean that it won't happen in the future. And when it happens, it goes really, really bad. Case in point, here, when it goes bad.
And T2 had only equipped the reactor with a simple cooling system using city water. When the system malfunctioned, there was no backup cooling immediately available to control the reaction.
That was the first issue that I identified. So they did not have the systems in place to cool down this thing in the event of an emergency. They didn't have the adequate systems. And it certainly didn't help that the batch size was too big for this container.
The most important thing to managing reactive chemistry hazards is that you have to have a thorough and complete understanding of your chemistry under design conditions and also under all foreseeable abnormal conditions.
Damn right, Dennis. Love Dennis. Great guy. Whew. Oh, Dennis. Listen to Dennis. Don't be unlike Dennis.
The CSB has noted that to prevent reactive chemical accidents, companies should identify and thoroughly evaluate reactive hazards in their processes, implement appropriate emergency pressure relief systems and other design safeguards, develop effective operating procedures and training programs, and carefully manage any changes to existing processes, and plan for possible accidents, including evacuation drills and emergency response exercises. Although T2's owners had undergraduate degrees in chemistry and chemical engineering and experience in the chemical industry, neither had been trained on how to recognize or control reactive hazards.
A large portion of the incidents have occurred because the people who are actually running the process were not aware either of the existence of the reactive chemistry hazard or of the potential magnitude of the consequences associated with that chemical reaction hazard. So a lot of the problem, I think, is education and awareness.
The board noted that multiple sources of information are available on how to control reactive hazards, including publications from the Center for Chemical Process Safety, the Design Institute for Emergency Relief Systems, and the UK Health and Safety Executive. Following the T2 investigation, the CSB recommended that the American Institute of Chemical Engineers work to incorporate education about reactive hazards into college-level chemical engineering curricula.
Reactive chemical hazards continue to be a too frequent cause of chemical accidents. Improved industry practices and increased education will help prevent these tragedies. Thank you for watching this CSB safety video.
Okay, that was it for today's video. This one was very, very simple. The determination of fault in my opinion, is 100% on T2 Laboratories based on the information in the CSB video. It doesn't seem like there were any other negligent parties. The workers there were not trained. They didn't have the adequate knowledge. They didn't have the adequate support systems. They didn't have the adequate contingency plans to help prevent or mitigate this incident from happening. But I certainly want to know what y'all think in the comments. Did I miss anything? Any chemists down below? Let me know what your thoughts are. As always, the goal of this channel is to make content worthy of your time. All I ask is that if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. We have a lot of fun. We cover a wide variety of topics, and we're growing like crazy. Thank y'all, as always, for the support. We just passed 431,000 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy. Leave any comments, suggestions down below in the comment section. I'll be sure to look at them. All right, y'all. Talk to you soon.